Hi YouTube and welcome back to another video. It's Remarx or Remaru X, and today we're going to be reacting to Why is Kris So Weak by Mystic Slime. Let's just dive right into the video.
After playing through the most recent Deltarune chapters, I realized something. Kris kinda sucks, huh? And no, not their character, but in terms of combat strength, yeesh. I mean, in Undertale, we have an 8-year-old who can shake off attacks from gods, and in
So why is Kris so weak? That's a really good question.
Deltarune, yeah, this is like a hydrogen bomb versus coughing baby comparison here. When Kris is on their own, they don't really have the best track record, needing help in both
No,
different Spamton Neophytes, and even when they do
from
have
Noelle.
Susie and Rousey to help them, they still lose to threats like Gaia Queen, which Frisk could probably just solo, even
Frisk could literally one-shot Giga Queen.
without any LV. We could definitely dive more into
Right.
the semantics and power scaling side of this, but as much as I love to push the Frisk agenda even further, I
Yeah, Mystic Slime loves Frisk.
think we can all agree that Kris seems to be a good bit weaker than Frisk was. But my
Yeah,
question is why? It's especially confusing if you buy into the whole Kris is Frisk theory, which proposes that they're both biologically the same person, but just raised in different circumstances.
yeah, a lot of people have this theory. I personally don't believe it, but let's see what Mystic has to say about it.
In parallel worlds. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that this is true, but come on, their names are anagrams of each other and their palettes use the exact same
That is true, but it could also just be, protagonists having a similar name, but an anagram doesn't always mean it's the same person, you know?
hex values. You can't deny that it's at the very least a possibility. Why I bring it up
I
though is
do admit
because
that.
if it is true, then this situation is even more confusing. If anything, you'd think that Kris would be stronger than Frisk if they're an older version of them. So what is the
Yeah.
reason then? Well, I don't think it has to do with Kris being just an inherently weaker vessel than Frisk was. It just wouldn't explain the
Vessel mention?
gap between them to me. They have nearly identical stats in the light world, and you'd think that Kris being older would make them the stronger one if anything. No, instead, I think it's some kind of outside circumstance here which drastically affects both of them in different ways.
To be fair, in the night fight, it seems like they were working together, but I do admit, in the Spamton Neo fight at the end of Snowgrave, or yeah, at the end of the Cyber World, um, they did need Noelle's help, so.
Their synergy with us, their synergy
Hi,
with
Mystic.
the soul. In Undertale, us and Frisk have a pretty good relationship. We can rarely ever do anything that they don't
Oh, I haven't thought about that. That's so true. With Frisk and the player, we don't really have any combat or not combat, but power struggle. But with Kris, it's definitely evident that we do.
want to do, and our goals are pretty in sync. I actually made a whole video on this recently if you
This is a really good video. Go check it out. I've already watched it and I didn't react to it, but you should go check it out if you haven't.
want to check it out, but in short, it's pretty clear that us and Frisk are on the same page in Undertale. In Deltarune though, this couldn't be further from the truth. Forget not being on the same page, we don't even know what playbook Kris is on right now. To say that our
Actually,
motivations don't align with Kris's would be the biggest
it's also because with Frisk, we know what they're doing 24/7, but with Kris, once they go to sleep, there's time where we don't see them moving around without us, so.
understatement of the century. Even when we pick good options, it's clear that a lot of the choices we make are not ones that Kris is comfortable with. It's no secret that Kris downright despises us. I mean, just
Yeah.
look at this. This speaks for itself. I think that Deltarune not only poses the question of what if the player and protagonist were two separate people, but as a product of that also asks what if they had different goals and were pitted against each other.
That's the difference between Undertale and Deltarune. While they both have the player and the protagonist as different characters, in Deltarune, they're always at odds with each other, right? With Kris and the player.
It's a really interesting topic to explore that we've gotten to see a lot in the new chapters. And it's just a hunch, but I think that
That
might
scene is so
also
cool.
be what explains the huge power difference between Kris and Frisk. We know that the soul plays a massive part in the combat system of both games, being how we dodge attacks and
You're taking too long.
act ourselves. It would make sense if having synergy with it would significantly boost your combat abilities and vice versa. Kris
Right.
removing it from their body also clearly hurts them, and they seem very physically impaired while it remains separated. Sure,
That's
this could
true.
be nothing more than a purely physical reaction, but I think that it could also serve as symbolism for how we're both much weaker when we don't act as one. There's a chance that being so far separated from the soul emotionally and cognitively results in similar impairments as being physically separated does. And I'll just be honest, what other explanation really is there? There's no other major difference between Kris and Frisk, at least
And we definitely know that, like, it affects Kris. Well, obviously, but in the weird route, spoilers if you haven't seen it, in chapter 4, when Kris like throws around the soul, like it gets hurt in the trash can, right?
not one that would affect their strength like this. And unless you think that this creature was just naturally endowed with otherworldly physical strength and
I think they were, and that otherworldly strength was us as the player.
durability, there's no other reason that I can
But
think
I also do think not Kris, Frisk as a protagonist already has lots of determination as stated in the story, so
of. But hey, when it comes to Frisk, I guess you really never know.
that's true. Wow, what a great video! Mystic Slime making great videos as always. But yeah, make sure to go subscribe to Mystic Slime. It was Rimrex or RimRX, and I'll see you later. Bye, YouTube.